Hi, welcome to episode 20, ooh la la, of 5D Tea Time. I'm your co-host, Lindsay Love, and this is,
Krystal, Kristen,
hi, Kristen.
and Lindsay.
So the topic of today is the Matrix. And what is the Matrix, first of all? How do we hack it in order to really gain freedom and liberation in our lives, in order to really evolve on a human level and a dimensional level as well? So, Kristen, what exactly is the Matrix?
Well, I think there's a lot of definitions or ways to describe what it is, but through direct experience, I would say the matrix is what I channeled this morning in my meditation after yoga was that the matrix is our carbon-based double helix DNA. And as we know, the DNA is the building blocks of this body. So the DNA is inside of every cell, um, and organ and tissue of this body. And the DNA is like, in like the film, the reels of film, or like at the old movie theaters. It's all
Yeah.
digital, but um, the film is like the DNA, and and then the soul is like the light behind the DNA that like projects through the double helix. And what we see on the screen of our life is that projection, right? So what we actually see is like the matrix, like this kind of like unconscious or subconscious patterning that's just encoded inside of us through generational inheritance.
So, just to interrupt you really quickly, would you say it's kind of a preset construct that we come in with?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then maybe it's added to with indoctrination and just throughout our childhood and our lifetimes, it's added onto in a way.
yeah. Like there's this whole study on epigenetics, how certain genes are turned on and turned off based on like environmental influences.
Right.
So, different things that happen to us in our environments as young children, being reared into adulthood. Um, you know, the mother loves you and feeds you well. Oh, the father is unloving, or vice versa, or like love's expressed through community meals, or a child has abuse, like different different yeah, genes are turned on and switched off based on, yeah, these environments. And of course, the education system and religious indoctrination. I mean, those are kind of the three: family, education, religion, are kind of like the three big,
Mhm.
indoctrination chambers that we're exposed to um, as a young child. So, but I do think it's preset, but there's a lot of imprinting that happens um, in the consciousness. Once you're like in the body and birthed, then all those layers start to compact and can alter the gene code actually. But we do have a preset thing that does come in, that we do come in with. Yeah.
And I know I interrupted you earlier, and I want to get back to kind of the DNA code, but it's my belief that we choose what we come into. So it's a choice, like the body that we come into, and that would also include the DNA structure that we come into as well.
Yeah,
Is that on board with
I
how
love
you
that.
view it?
Yeah, I love that because it's like we're these beings outside of DNA. We actually like do choose. There is an activity of choice or of like assignment of what genetic code will give us the best probability, to have a complete experience for the soul, to learn, to grow, and to become and remember its wholeness. So I do feel that we do actively choose the families, that we come into based on previous kind of stations, in our incarnations and in the past. So it does, like what you're saying does show us that like the genetics and the soul are two things that become apparently one, but there is still a distinction in the body. The soul is the light that is shining through the transcript of the DNA. It's almost like the zeros and ones, it's film, but it's also like code,
But without awareness of the differentiation between the two, is it fair to say that someone could go completely their whole entire lives unaware of the fact that they're separate?
Yeah, it's I mean, maybe up until their deathbed, where the separation starts to be felt and they see the light and it's like, oh, and then the reflection starts to come in. I would say to most, I don't know about sociopathic people. I don't know what like that level of disconnect. Yeah, I guess I can't speak for all, but I would think that a person could go through their whole life not realizing that there is that freedom, that sense of, people feel like, oh, just so bound to their depression that they don't realize that there's any space between, just that complete veil of heaviness and this that is almost like I don't know what I want to say, just like the curtains are pulled, and they can't see that there's a light, within them, but it is always there, and it's true for all humans that are birthed through the organic life way. I don't know what they're calling robots at this point. I know there's a whole transhuman movement, and it's not that. Like we're talking about the light of the soul born of conception that has this spark that has the ability for empathy, is maybe the keynote differentiation between a transhuman and a organic human with a soul.
But I would say within the matrix, if there's never that awareness of that differentiation between the coding of what we came with, aka the matrix, and the soul kind of projecting behind it, like you said, the light projecting behind the movie screen, that there can be quite a robotic nature to that way of operating in the world, even though there are no inorganic things in the body necessarily to make one robotic. Let's just say that, just for like example. And but the actions, the ways, it's like the matrix is quite being all consumed by it is quite a robotic way of operating in the world. And so what say you about that?
I would I would interchange the word unconscious, just like a lack of consciousness, a lack of awareness, a lack of sensitivity to one's inner experience, and even like feeling state can outwardly appear to be very mechanical and robotic and a lacking of empathy. So there is a sense that an overdevelopment of ego, which is a pretty, there's levels of consciousness to the ego, but like a completely just like ego driven human body can look pretty robotic, it can look pretty just unemotional, unintentional, unfeeling about its actions. And there is a sense that, the matrix is perpetuated and like I almost like feel like the matrix, I'm almost like neutralizing it, because like DNA, there's a lot of gifts inside of DNA. There's like a lot of like strengths and like good feelings inside of it. And there's a lot of trauma. I mean, it's like we're coming from millennia of war, right? I mean, how many of like our children in past lives were sent to war and like died in the battlefield? How many of us died in the battlefield? How many were burned at the stake or hung for treason or whatever? There's a lot of pain in the past, for millennia, we can just say. And there's a lot of strength and victory and triumph and valor and like, codes of honor inside of there too, right? So it's not all bad. It's just, I feel, to really sensitize to what we're experiencing. And it does seem that through pain points is where like our attention goes the most. Like, where do we feel pain in the body? Where do we feel pain emotionally? It's usually interconnected. And that is a portal in. It's like that sensitizes. If we can like not shun that away, but if we can utilize that as like a matrix messenger of what is like compressing us and condensing us and keeping us stuck, like the soul stuck inside of its control and program, we can just like feel it and like come into it and actually bring like this soul energy to it, like, and the soul's love. I mean, it's just like this like love. It then all of a sudden like there's this ability to like, you're decoding it. We're decoding. It's not even like hacking it, because it's not a shortcut. It's like we're decoding the matrix, and then we can like see through the veil, and like there's more of a, it's not even like you're getting on the other side of it. There's just like there's another like opening of light that can just like transcend. So then the soul can just start to like create from inside of its sacred geometrical design. It's like it's not a soul matrix, it's like a soul design. It's like a holy perfect design that can just start to boom, like create from that, rather than through the filtration system of parental and generational information, even though that information assists us to get to this point, but we're just like, we're liberating it essentially. We're like liberating genetics and we're liberating the matrix, is how I would say, yeah, what decoding the matrix is to me. It's kind of exciting to like think about this, to process it, and then to actually like talk about it out loud, because I'm just kind of working through this download that I got this morning. So I mean, what's happening what's happening to you over there?
So yes, I'm completely on board with everything you're saying. The thing that is coming up biggest for me is, I've experienced a few big trauma points in my life, right? Like, and after experiencing them, I realized that I gained the most freedom and liberation from those points, actually. And so I'm just curious, like in my mind, and I'm kind of working through this too, is like, we kind of hinted on this last week too, is like, do some of these codes come in? Does this come in the genetic, like, does this come in the DNA? Or is this kind of coding that comes along to either pull us further into the matrix or to liberate us further from the matrix, having these trauma points? Because oftentimes when we go through life and things are kind of hunky-dory, it's easy to attach more to that unconscious state, right? Because it's like, it takes more effort to be conscious of what's going on around us, because it's kind of like going through the motions, like, okay, today is good, and this is what I do today, and this is everything. But when the trauma comes in, when the big hardship comes in, when the big challenge comes in, it boom, it's an awakening point. And so I think that is really like a choice point within the matrix, to either allow the matrix to consume and drive you further into it, deeper and deeper, or to use that as a liberation point,
Yeah.
as a freedom point, as, you know, and sometimes we can't see that when we're right in it, because we're just trying to survive it and get through it, right? But it's kind of like that process, and then the healing process after.
You're frozen for a minute. Let us give it a second. This happened earlier and she came back, so we'll give it a moment.
Adding more to our DNA code for next life, to like bring in more. I don't know, that I'm kind of confused about, but I'm clear about, you know, we can use those moments as catalyst points to gain more self-awareness, more self-consciousness, connect with the soul much deeper, and have liberation accompany those experiences, and have, you know, ultimate freedom. I mean, maybe not ultimate freedom, but that continual progression towards more and more and more freedom.
Mhm. You cut out there for a chunk, the internet froze. So I didn't quite hear what you fully said, but what I'm kind of hearing you say is like, when traumatic events happen, it's you know, there's a, you know, it's almost like when trauma happens, it's almost like the veil does thin, and the like the peeling back of the matrix, almost like there's like a tear in the matrix, you know. And it's like, is the soul going to rise, or is it going to sink deeper in? And it's like
Exactly.
trauma points are like a tear in the cosmos, you know, of like
Yeah.
what the soul's going to choose. So those are like choice points. Is that kind of like crossroad points?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, we can choose, you know, to allow that to support our liberation and make us more conscious and actually see what's happening, or we can allow it to take us deeper into that kind of unconscious operational mode. You know, what I was referring to as kind of like the robotic mode earlier. Yeah. So that's clear for me. But if we choose not to, like, because personally, you know, I believe that we come in to really work on, uh, at least in this lifetime, and I feel like in many others, is the growth, the spiritual growth, the deeper connection to the soul, the evolution. And so what's your opinion if we choose not to kind of grow from challenges, traumatic experiences, and do quite the opposite, allow it to take us kind of deeper into the matrix? Does then that have more influence on our DNA or our code coming into the next lifetime?
Well, I mean, even within this lifetime, there'll be opportunities, you know, the Tower card and tarot, you know, there'll be more opportunities where the tear will happen, the trauma happens, and life will give you some choice points. But at a certain point, if the biochemistries are just on such a decline, yeah, it's, I mean, eventually the soul will liberate It's just like, how many, billions of years do you want to do it? Your choice. How many like more, of like the density lifetimes, does one want to, you know, experience? And some beings might have, it's all going back to source. It's just like, how long do you want the density to learn, the polarity, or the contrast world to learn these things? And there's a sense of like, with just like soul freedom, soul liberation. I mean, I would personally, it's just my intention to feel the eternal free in this realm. I want to like free the eternal of the soul inside of DNA, and to grow less from resistance and contrast and pain, but more through just the process of creation, where there's like less resistance and just all the fear, just like liberating from that, so that the soul can just create by its design, the communities and the gatherings of the people to support creative expression of the mini soul design. So I think we can set ourselves back. And that's why, those of us that are like even having these conversations and have at least like enough of a field of resonance to this, like the genetic liberation, hacking the matrix that is our mind, that is the DNA, as I'm perceiving it today. This is like, this is kind of new, even though I've been thinking about the matrix for a long time and what it is. To me, it's like the matrix has to be us. I mean, it's not outside of us, it's what we're operating in. And it's not an evil thing or a good, it's just, it's the physicality of DNA. And, but it's very hackable. It's very programmable. It's very it can be very manipulated and influenced, right? Like from outside forces. So that's why like the religious programming, the educational program, it actually is a bunch of hogwash. That's what we say here in Indiana. I don't know if that's a term where you live.
Even though I'm not in Indiana, I'm from there. Okay. We do say hogwash, and it smells like hog poop there too.
It's stinky. The hogwash is stinky, and but I'm not saying it's like all stinky, and it is. So in a sense, we are, and it takes so much self-compassion, because it actually, like, to go through this film and to see it and to feel it, there's so much power and like liberation inside of that seeing and feeling process, and so much like capacity growth for holding even more love. And that's why we do it, because the energy and vitality and experience of loving even more to a fuller capacity, and there's no fullest capacity. Love permeates and can just keep going on. That's why we go in to feel it, because it can be painful. I mean, it actually is. It is painful. I mean, just even going through like the memory of like birth process and that first like hit of the medical system on the body, the cold stethoscope, even to like touch the skin. It's like, that hurts, like this world hurts. It's cold. And I want to go back into the warm embryo, if we're fortunate to have a loving embryo, I mean, people's embryonic journeys, with like a drug addicted, there's just like a lot of situations, right? I mean, there's a lot that they were coming through, coming into this world with. And the imprinting starts early. I lost my train of thought a little bit, but do you have where did I
well
Where do I go?
No, it's just, I love that you're bringing this up because I always view the matrix, and this is just personal viewpoint, as more of like a mental construct of the mind.
Mhm.
And so it's amazing that you're bringing this new kind of thought process in, and it's really resonating. Um, so, and this can be, and just to be clear, like this is potentially ancestral stuff too. So it's not only our stuff from like past lifetimes or things we still need to work through that we're bringing in, we're also bringing through ancestral stuff from our history and our past. So breaking through stuff that isn't even necessarily ours, it's ours from our family from generations. Is that a valid statement?
Mhm. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel so. Do you? I mean, do you?
Yeah, yeah, I really do. I feel like um I feel like it is multiple, it comes from multiple areas, that kind of code, that DNA code. It's not just one thing. It's from past lifetimes, it's from the trajectory for this lifetime, it's from the ancestral chain.
Mhm.
So how do we break free? I mean, how do we liberate? Like, what's the, because, it's an ongoing process in my life, but yeah, what do we do?
Well, this is where I think it becomes such like an individualized learning plan. If
Yeah,
I were to be like
exactly.
a teacher,
Okay, I've
you
got my
know,
curriculum here.
yeah, I know, like
My matrix hacking curriculum.
we are not all designed exactly. We're designed from the one. We all are unique source fractals. So it's like our lifestyle design plan is so unique to each and every one of us. And so it's like we want to utilize genetics. Like, what were the positive predispositions of your family? Was it like family meals? Well, maybe for you, one way to hack the matrix is to like cook meals and like share it with the community, have community potlucks. Maybe, your parents were runners. Maybe running for you is a way to hack the matrix. But also, we don't want to do it the way the parents did it. We're not DNA replicates, right? We're wanting our unique souls to shine through those gifts. So we want to like take the gifts and like liberate the soul through the gifts into enlightenment. So um so I think, harnessing the gifts of the DNA and really creating healthy lifestyle patternings that are going to help that to foster and grow. Again, not replicating the way your parents did it, but using that inspiration of observation to um, to give your soul something to work through, also with the pain points, with the shadow work. I mean, therapy, working with a coach, with a therapist, with a healer, to help liberate and bring wholeness to the shadow, so that the shadow can access the gift, then that can access the liberation. um, so yeah, there's a lot of shadow work, and then there's a lot of like, working with the gifts, and really doing it your unique way. Not And you'll feel it, like, let's say you know you're a runner, and all of a sudden, like, you hear this kind of like negative voice, like push, push, put, it's like, well, whose voice? Grandpa? Like, or like, whose voice is that? Like, no, 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 that's not mine. Soft, bounce into the earth, or whatever. What does the soul want in that moment? We're not like, we don't want to like drill ourselves deeper into those double helix codes, because we're liberating the double helix actually and moving into the solar light body, the soul body, which yeah, has a there's actually a different format than the double helix. but that gets into more of the, advanced, light work information. But, we're happy to share that at some point, but we don't need to in this conversation. But yeah, I think it's utilizing the content of our lives and really welcoming it as actually the support system for our liberation. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I love that concept of like, were your parents runners, you
Mhm.
know, and maybe you've never dabbled in running, and then suddenly you start and there's just this moment, like this freedom moment. I'm
Mhm.
trying to think about when that, like an example of when that happened in my life. Maybe not something that my parents did. Oh, floral design for me, I think, was a big moment for that, of like the creativity and the liberation of the mind of that, and like the connection to the earth and the flowers and the creativity.
Mhm.
Um, my dad and I always used to make floral designs when I was younger, or wreaths for Christmas, just dabble a little. My mom always planted the flowers. So, and then later in life, I was like, I love this. This is like wonderful. So that's an interesting concept that you bring up. And I love that. And it doesn't always have to be something your parents did, but it's cool to look back on things that your parents did that maybe you've never tried before, but maybe have always had an interest in,
Mhm.
to see. Or there could be things like another just personal experiences, like surfing for me. The first time I surfed, I was like, this is it. Like, my parents never surfed, but I'm like, the ocean is it. This is it for me. So really trying new things is coming up, and really dialing in and tapping into that feeling that it produces within you. And you'll know it because it feels free. It
Mhm.
feels liberating. It doesn't feel heavy, and the matrix can a lot of times feel just heavy and
Yeah.
taxing energetically. And these things don't, these liberation moments are, um yeah, it's like, oh,
Mhm.
a whole new world is flashing in my mind from Aladdin, but I won't sing for you guys. That's not my forte. But yeah, so I really love that example, Kristen, because it's quite cool, just recognizing, yeah, recognizing like what's in our past, or what do we love to do as a kid as well. I think that's another big one.
Mhm.
Like all this stuff we love to do as children, and then life gets really busy, and a lot of responsibility rolls in, and we kind of forget, like, oh, I really loved to sing and dance when I was little, or I really love to grow my own garden, or whatever that looks like. And so potentially reconnecting with those things that were once loves in our life, and incorporating them once again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find too, like, a lot of times the trauma of being in this world kind of veils our memory even of our childhood. And that's where like deeper therapies do support that, like the more of the pain body we go into to release, there's more memory. It's like our memory of life becomes like more colorful, and we have
Mm.
more access to like the true spirit of the child within. And that was a profound realization just in these past couple of years. It's like, wow, the more I go into my trauma, the more I can remember like the dream of my soul, or when I felt like the happiest. And that was like a real epiphany moment. It's like all these memories of like childhood joy that I didn't have access to because I was so collapsed energetically, like
Mhm.
in my just you know becoming, like you said, kind of robotic in this world, like just asleep, like asleep in the matrix of my mind. and of the DNA and just like life on Earth, you know, just in this certain limited mechanism that was like preset, and is very dampering and hampering of my vitality, of my energy, of my strength, of my courage, of my light, of my love, even. And as I started to go into why I was so fatigued and why I was so kind of like not depressed, but just kind of a humdrum, you know,
Yeah.
peaceful state, but actually I was collapsed. My nervous system was collapsed. Um, there was like yeah, a sense of like going into like not even the why, just like where those pain points were. And as I start to, and I'm still in the process of liberating pain point after pain point after pain point, it's like layers of an onion. It's like, wow, you know, I remember who I am. I remember like when I was the most happy as a child. Like I totally remember the moment. Um, and before all of that, I couldn't even access. People were like, "Oh, what makes you? What do you love to do?" Like, what do I love to do? Like, what do I really love and doing in this matrix? I don't actually really love it, like doing it. I mean, I love swimming in the ocean. I love being in the water. I love like sitting in the forest. I mean, I could access a few things. There's always in
Mhm.
nature, you know, but it's
Yeah.
like, what do I love doing like in this matrix? Like this world bores me to death. Or it doesn't excite me, you know, like
Yeah.
I, you know, and I just always felt like there's not a place for me here because it's just like I don't know, the screen that I was projecting was just it was like yeah, I don't want to participate in it. So like non-participatory. But as I started to go into my pain body, it's like, oh, like I remember my joy. Like I remember my play. I remember my excitement like as a performer when I was 6 years old and these recitals and these sequin outfits and like we were doing this group thing and like I
Oh
was
yeah.
so happy. Like we were in the circus basically and we were like making this huge stage performance together. And it
Mhm.
was so fun and it was so brilliant. And it wasn't like it was like we were all making it together. And that was just like, wow, I like finally had access to what brings me joy in life. But
Yeah.
I had to go into, yeah, the pain body to find it because it was buried under it.
Yeah.
And since then, so much energy is just like popping off and getting released. And
Mm.
yeah, like, yeah, that like true soul magic is has more space to like, yeah, exist, you know, or live. I know we talk about existence and living, but it like have more space to breathe and to create. That would be the
Yeah.
right word.
I love that. And I also, as you're talking, I'm thinking back about not only childhood, but like points in my life where I was the happiest or I was the healthiest in my body, and sometimes I think back about that. And I remember too, in particular, when I lived in Colorado and when I lived in Indonesia, I felt like both places I felt very liberated. But in both places, I was in nature every single day, pretty
Yeah,
much all day long,
yeah.
or at least a good part of the day, whether it was walking the dogs or going camping or hiking, or on my motorbike in Indonesia riding to work and then going surfing later that day. But um ultimately, yeah, it's cool as you're saying that. It's also like, if we look back not only on childhood but our life, like when were we the most connected and liberated and free, and um what were we doing? Like, when were we the healthiest in our bodies? What were we doing? What was our lifestyle like? Was there a balance? And then take that moment to kind of compare and contrast, like, what am I living right now? How am I feeling right now? Can I incorporate some of those things from the past into today? Can I lessen my schedule, weed out my schedule a little bit so I have more time for these things?
Mhm.
Yeah, can I derive more of a balance in my life? So yeah, it's such a good point, like the childhood thing, but also I feel like throughout life too, there's been these time points where we're really just living our best lives.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I love that so much. And you kind of bring in this maybe a part two of the conversation, because the matrix is like this new channeling today is about the DNA. And there is the outer matrix that's being created from these egos, from these like inner matrices that are creating this world that and have been for millennia, that hasn't it's a copy. It's not prime reality. Prime reality is connected to the water and to the wind and to the earth and to the sun, and the lineage of suns through the suns. It is the organic template of life. Prime reality, like the natural world, connects us to the prime reality. And then what we see in society is almost like a 3D printing, or like a carbon copy or something of it, of like it's actually the codes are, it's like a synthetic replication of something that's not actually real. I don't know. So, I mean, it might be interesting to have another conversation about, the matrix programming that is trying to influence the individual DNA, and how manipulatable, the human being is, if we don't have this understanding of the mechanics of the soul and of the spirit and of the chakra system and of this like inner alignment to organize ourselves and to know what prime reality is, or our central axis is, and what our direct connection to source is within us. We're a lot more susceptible to matrix programming. And there's incredible levels, like military level grades of programming, that are happening. I mean,
that are bombarding all the time.
Big time. Yeah, big time. And please.
Oh no, I was just thinking like a prime example of like an extreme of this, but you're talking about carbon copy or a printed version, and I don't want to dig too deep because I know we've already kind of spent a lot of time, but it's something like the metaverse. I mean, that's the extreme example, but putting on a virtual headset and literally living in a virtual reality. I mean, that's like an ultimate matrix construct of outward forces, creating almost an absolute separate reality, but that's another form of the matrix. That's an extreme form of the matrix. And so, and then it starts on such smaller levels, like television program. What's a television? It's a program, and even music and all different things can. And then there's also the outward, outside bombardment of even military programming. So yeah, it's just, it's a really
It might all be the same.
Yeah, but if we allow it to kind of take hold in our lives, it's one thing to like participate in those things sometimes and be conscious of what's occurring, and watch a movie or a television show or things like that. But when it completely consumes the mind, and alters the reality to almost into a virtual reality, that's like a whole other form of the matrix that's even more extreme and will be harder to escape than the one we currently.
Rose again.
It's time. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, there you are. There you are.
Any closing, or how are you feeling, Kristen? Anything further that?
No, yeah, it's a good conversation. It's definitely feels very again, just good to talk about these things, and that we have like enough comprehension to be at the level of being able to talk about these things, because we're really going to want to start to hone in on our center point, our center line, like prime reality, like our soul consciousness, because we're quickly developing a world where the matrix that appears to be outside of us, people are just going to keep believing it, and it's going to be, and it already is, a mirage of illusions, delusions, distractions, especially distractions. So, because what's happening, what's available to us on a soul level right now is like so magnificent, like the opening of this age that we're in, this mass acceleration and mass influx of light is just turning on the soul light. And if we can focus on that and start creating a world through that, it is, I mean, that's why we're here. And if we can actually focus on it and create it, it's a world of love and incredible beauty and harmony and humanity. And this matrix, like replicated, kind of, we can say shadow reality, is doing everything they can to keep us very distracted. So it's all about distracting the mind so that we aren't focusing in on the soul, because what's coming through there is just like love power, big time, soul
and
power,
and freedom.
big time. So that's what I would just end on, is that it's worthy of the time that we invest and spend on ourselves to navigate into this depth and level, to really focus and be the creator that we're each designed to be in this time, to make the new earth reality like based in love and yeah, and all that comes with that. So
beautiful.
Yeah,
beautifully said.
Well, I wanted to announce too, did you have anything?
No, that was perfect.
Anybody's listening still at the end of this conversation. On Sunday, August 20th, we're doing a meditation for Maui at 3:00 Eastern time. So I invite everyone to come and join hearts to meditate on the aloha spirit of the whole islands as a whole, and particularly our beloved Maui and Lahaina town that has been decimated. So
beautiful. You said 3:00 Eastern.
3:00 Eastern.
Amazing. Yeah. Will you drop the link below so everyone can access that?
Yeah. Great.
Yay.
Yay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. And I think we'll be skipping next week, and then we'll do a video the following week. Is that right?
Yeah, maybe. Can we put
Okay, we'll talk about it. Okay, there might be a little bit of a week pause, but maybe not. We'll see. So we'll see you all very soon, and hope you enjoyed this episode. Please engage in the conversation, because this is a big conversation, in the comments below. Much love.
Much love.